And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, after what it seems like forever from a missed week, we are back with another recap review of the hit HBO Max show. And just like that, it's your guy Lucas here with my lovely, talented, now married co host,
Yeah,
Maya. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. I's married now.
Exactly. Hey, we told y'all the last time we recorded, we said, hey, it's a chance. Y'all won't get the next episode until a little bit later because we have plans and someone was getting married. Now you all know who that person is, especially if you listen to anything Big Gold Belt
Yeah.
and you follow our other reviews. It was also mentioned in our other review that came also late for the same reason because her wedding day was the most important thing for us to be doing. And unfortunately, it was not recording. But we all know our audience. We know y'all are going to come back and check us out no matter what. Anyway, so today we're giving you all a super size review of episode 5 and episode 6 of And Just Like That. So we're going to jump directly into it as episode 5 starts off with just a montage of Carrie being Carrie because who doesn't wear heels everywhere humanly possible in the house at any given time
Not
as she's
I.
interrupting.
Come on. She is giving women everywhere. If this was real life, which I know there is somebody being
Mhm.
carried right now, bro. I I cannot. First of all, I have big feet. Okay, so the idea of wearing heels all the time, much less for something as small as my wedding, like, are you nuts? Carrie, listen, I can't continue.
Like there was not she didn't even have like slippers at the door. She was like, no, when I wake up, I'm gonna put these heels on and I'm gonna walk throughout my house the entire day in them. As here we are introduced now to a new character, a downstairs neighbor who comes in, who is just disturbed that she is constantly walking every day humanly possible with heels. As he said, just a bunch of click clack with a bunch of noise. Now, we're gonna approach this from a different way of thinking here. What consideration now this is again, both of us are in places now where we don't have people above or below us, but in the times when we were in apartments and stuff, how much consideration did you give your neighbors to the possible noise you can make to disturb them?
Hey, listen, that broomstick to the ceiling. Cause what are you doing up there? Well, why? Why is it so noisy? Like, cut it out. No, no, no. Seriously though, I think that for me, I'm just a considerate person naturally, so I
Yeah.
try not to do things that are like overly loud, that would
Mhm.
disturb the neighbors and whatnot. Especially if I'm only doing stuff like hanging out and vibing, throwing a little kickback every now and then.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. If I'm up all night and I'm trying to sleep during the day and Carrie consistently is walking through the house in heels, somebody got to die. And her shoes are going to be the first thing to go because,
Yeah.
ma'am, but I'm confused. Does she not know he was down there? I think, never mind.
But
She forgot because he's only
yeah.
there 6 months out the
6 months
year.
I did as
And yeah.
it was brought up in the next scene with her and the girls as they're at lunch with Seema, and she's complaining about this neighbor. She says his name is Duncan Reeves, and that's when she finds out one, he's a famous author
Hmm.
that does this. And then Seema brings up, you don't remember when I sold you the place? I said you would have a downstairs neighbor 6 months out the year. So
Yeah.
for Duncan, it's a situation where this is his break away. Like I guess this is like his secluded little place to come and write
Hmm.
to get that thing. And as he points out, when him and Carrie had a conversation, like the prior neighbor was perfect. And Carrie, like, yeah, because she was bedridden.
Which is trash. First of all, it's so disrespectful because he was like, "Well, she was quiet as a mouse." Yeah, quiet as a mouse 'cause she was bedridden. Like, where was she
Bedridden.
gonna go? I was like, "Yikes!" Okay, all right.
But that is just the crux of introduction right there. Next up, as well, I would say the biggest thing next up is we get Charlotte and Carrie as after lunch they walk and they talk about relationships. Now, here's a very interesting part of it is Carrie talking about her relationship with Aiden here, and luckily because we're combining both of them into one. This clearly plays out in episode 6 exactly what this is here. But this is just her telling Charlotte that she's finally come to grips of exactly her and Aiden's situation here. And now she understands how to approach it. And at the same time, we get Charlotte saying, I couldn't imagine having to do anything like that with Harry. Just what do you think about, hmm, from a friend's perspective, if you tell someone, like, hey, this is how my relationship is going, and then someone possibly not meaning to completely dismisses the way you think your relationship is going is possibly good by saying, I couldn't imagine me going through exactly what you're going through.
I think sometimes in friendships we forget to be mindful of like what
Mm,
we're like what our friends are saying. And I know because obviously we're friends, right? And
yeah,
we both have moments with other people, with each other, where you actually have to like stop yourself. You have to be like, oh, no, even though you're not necessarily comparing, it would sound
yeah,
like comparing. So
yeah,
no, so whatever you're getting ready to say about yourself, focus on your friend, right? And so
exactly.
I think Charlotte meant no harm, because Charlotte is one
No,
of those people who,
yeah,
for sure, she's like, oh, it's a good intention kind of person. But I do think that I think her friends are kind of finding it hard in a way to get over this whole Aiden fake relationship
hmm,
situation. And so without even thinking about it, she's just like, wait, what? Like, you went from under not understanding to now understanding, to like the extreme perspective. So it's like, no, it's realistic, not romantic, which is how she describes it. And I'm thinking
yes,
to myself, okay, so for Charlotte, I think, again, no harm intended, but like, seriously, what do you mean?
yeah. It was a situation where to Charlotte it comes across as, then y'all may not even be in a relationship. Like, how do you view it this way? And and I think you're right. It is her friends trying to get a grasp around this thing with her and Aiden, but it comes across as friends wanting more for you than you want for yourself. Because I don't think any of them have ill intent about it. It's just more, it comes across as more them thinking like, but you should want more. We want more for you. Like, you shouldn't be
Yeah,
settling at this point in time for this situation with Aiden. And I think it also plays off the fact that, your husband passed away. Like, this is not the time for you to still be in this rut where you're just willing to accept anything. So at least I think that's the positive part. Her friends don't come across as judgmental about it. They're
right. They're
just
just worried.
questioning, why would my friend want to be in this situation? But after that, we have possibly the most inconsiderate scene this season on this show, because this irritated my soul. And this was after dinner, Charlotte and Harry, as they're walking after dinner, he takes this beautiful moment in his beautiful time to tell his lovely wife that, if you remember, I peed on myself and my erection issues, so I went to get checked out, and I have prostate cancer. And he says it so matter of factly, and then proceeds just to try to reassure her, like, no, don't worry about it, don't stress out, don't stress out. And the worst thing you could tell somebody when you give them this news is, you don't tell anybody else about this. I need you to hide this from our kids, hide this from our family,
Yeah.
hide this from everyone else. What did you think just about the way Harry delivered the news to Charlotte, and then what he asked her to do after that?
He knows his wife.
Mm,
He knows his wife, right? So let's think about this. From all the times that we've known Charlotte, she is one rice grain away from like the bag popping. You feel me? And so
yeah.
I think honestly, the walk in the park was probably the best thing he could have done, because she can't overreact too much because she's in public. We had
Mhm,
conversation about how you can take your family, if it's your family or whoever that you need to have a hard conversation with. You do it in
mhm,
public because they can't act out. Well, they can. You hoping that they
mhm.
won't as much as they would if you were in the house. So
Yeah,
I think he wanted to disarm her in a way that's like, hey, listen, this is happening, but we still get to live our lives and we will push past this. And I think he had to, and I feel like this is for men. Men will
That's
keep
what I
it
believe.
together, right?
Mhm.
And although he's panicking on the inside, but he has to keep it together and he has to make sure she keeps it together for the kids, and so I think that part I agree with. I think that he should have allowed her at least one person to share
Mhm.
with, to confide in, because that's so heavy to like be have to hold that to yourself with such a life altering decision, because we
Yeah.
don't know what that's going to look like. You know what I mean? Yeah, the doctor's
Mhm.
saying 98% success rate, and you caught it early, but you just don't know. So if something were to happen um super quickly, it would be kind of like a thrown off. So that's
Mhm.
my only um pet peeve or thing with him. But I think that I would prefer that too. And I'm also very big in terms of like
Mm.
energy. When you're
Yeah.
in a confined space, you kind of you don't breathe the same, if that makes sense. But if you're out in the open and you're in a space where like you kind of are still you're still in
Mhm.
shock, but you can still like take a moment to breathe, it's completely different. It's completely different.
Yeah. I think my biggest issue was twofold. One, it was him telling her she couldn't tell anyone else, because that can play so differently when you know you're dealing with someone who's emotional. Because at that point, then all of that's going to be bottled up within them. So then they're going to do exactly what Charlotte did. They're going to take it on so much that that could lead them to being depressed, because there's no one else to talk to about this. Especially, you don't necessarily want to go to the person who has or who got the diagnosis and try to have that conversation with them, because at that point in time you're just trying to wrap your mind around dealing with it. But I do believe people, when they get horrible news like that of a spouse, of a parent, of a sibling, that you do need someone else as an outlet to have that conversation with. Because if you don't have that outlet, I do believe that can lead to a huge breakdown. And then I was really shocked for how, because how open they are with their children. I was completely shocked that he didn't want them to know. And I understand you may think, and I
I'm
think,
not.
and I think from a parent perspective, a lot of parents think it's best if I don't tell them. But going both ways here, being someone who who had cancer and had to tell everybody about it, and having being someone who parent had it and having to hear it, it was always I always cherished the point that I knew, and that I knew when it was diagnosed versus me waiting until later on. Because I think what weighs on people so much is if you tell me after you find out there's no recourse of anything and everything's going to go downhill, then you tell me, because then I'm going to have I'm I can build resentment of saying you should have told me this from the beginning. And I say that because of the way they have their relationship with their kids. They treat their We see the conversations they have with their children here. They treat them like adults. If I could have a conversation with my daughter about her polyamorous relationship with her boyfriend and her boyfriend's boyfriend, then I think we can have this type of conversation.
I think that you're yes and no, right? There's always, for whatever reason, that thing when it comes to death that's very, very different than everything else, right? Because
Mhm,
you can control the dynamic a little bit, right? If you didn't want the daughter dating said boyfriend because he had another boyfriend, you could say no, you can't see him anymore, or you're not allowed
mhm,
to go XYZ, we're taking your phone, right? When it comes to death, there's so many variables, and I would think that I'm thinking like maybe because he's gonna do the surgery, maybe they're waiting to get to that space where it says like, hey, your dad had cancer, he's in remission, XYZ. I don't know. It's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged
mhm.
sword, but I do think that as an adult, I would want to know sooner rather than later. As a
Yeah.
kid, as a teenager, once you have a good handle on it, then come and tell me. Like I think, you know, if you can hold it together, because that's
That's the
also
key part too.
something, right? Then
Hmm.
that's the key part, and telling the kids.
I think that that comes along with you knowing the maturity level of your children. If you believe you have children at a certain level where we can have this conversation, and I could be honest with you about it, because unfortunately with cancer, as everyone knows, a doctor can tell you, oh, we caught it early enough, you'll be fine. And then months down the road, you may get different news. And I don't want to have that conversation then. I would much rather have that conversation at the beginning of, hey, this is what we caught, this is what's going on. And like, just to not prepare you for the end of life or anything of that nature, but I always feel more information is better
This goes
because it
into
can open up a different conversation with the children.
right. I was gonna say this goes into the conversations about like preparing them
There
for
you
your
go.
death, right? So
Mhm.
this is a big conversation, and I'm pretty sure every community, but I'm Black, I can only speak for the Black community.
Yes, yes,
But
it
we
is.
talk
Mhm.
about, not having life insurance, your funeral arrangements, how you want things to go when you pass, because a lot of people don't plan it out. And so I think that it's better to have those conversations earlier than later, because then a conversation like this is also easier to have because it's not foreign to them, if that makes sense.
There
If
you
you
go. Yeah.
you know what I mean? If you have a conversation
Mhm.
about death, hey, listen, I know you don't want to talk about it, but everybody's going to die at some point in time. Here's the plan that I have laid out for you
Mhm.
in case. And then once you have that first uncomfortable conversation, it becomes kind of easy. And I think that would have made a difference in a situation like this.
Yeah. And I think again, when you get diagnosed with cancer, and this is again speaking from personal experience, you want to keep it all in. You don't want people to know. You don't want the look of, oh God, this is I'm the cancer guy, and everyone you look at me, you think I'm sick. But on the flip side of that, something that you don't fully grasp until you tell other people is that it creates this amazing support system, because that's what you need more than anything else when you're going through treatments is
Absolutely.
you need a system of people who will be there for you, even if it's a quick phone call. Hey, I'm just checking on you. Want to go out somewhere? You want to take your mind off of things of this nature, like that. You need that more than you need at times, more than you need the treatment, because doctors will tell you your positive attitude towards stuff is just as strong as your treatment is. Because if you get down in the dumps and you get depressed and your spouse is depressed and you have no other outlet, it can make things worse for you.
Right.
So, but it's something that you don't understand until you're really in it, and then you've shared, and then you realize, oh, so I have a full support system of people I can go to and have these conversations with. And I know they're not feeling bad for me because of it, but they love me enough where they're like, hey, I'm just here to do whatever you need me to do. I think that's a highly important also aspect that we don't talk about a
Agreed.
lot when we get bad news from the doctor, because when Black people, we don't go to the doctor. Unfortunately, we still don't go, especially Black men, not Black women, because Black women will not only go to the doctor, they will drag the man to the doctor, they will drag
Hello.
everybody of the family to the doctor.
Everybody going to the doctor.
As one person said before, I can't remember the person who said it, and then we'll move on to the next, but I think this is important to say. Black women know everything humanly possible that's wrong with Black men. They can tell you the condition you have, what the diagnosis is. If you ask a single Black man what a thyroid is, they will be highly confused and couldn't begin to tell you what does that have to do with
Hello,
anything.
because sir, you said you was lethargic 7 days a week. I'm trying to figure out, do you have thyroid disease?
Exactly. Uh, Next up, we're going to go to Seema, and now this is part of the show where we just lump everything in with storylines here, because Seema's storyline this episode is her attempting to move on with her businesses. First, we see her go here to the bank for a, as you say, small business loan to buy this chic little office building in downtown. If anybody's been in New York before, you know there's no way that building is under $10 million. Not only that, as she's in there with the I'm
The
about to
bank
call her
teller
bank
or
teller, it's not
the loan
the
officer?
loan officer,
Yeah.
and the loan officer's even going over her finances. Like, do you really need a driver? Like, she like, oh
Do
no,
you need all
I'm
these
good.
expensive clothes?
Yes,
Yes, because I no, listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. I was on the floor. Seema said yes, because in my business, the look matters. So I need to get out of this expensive Mercedes
Exactly.
so that people know I'm about business. I said, if you don't get your ass in a Volvo somewhere and keep it pushing, ma'am, like what? But I mean, of course. But here's the thing, though, too. Whenever I think it's either in this episode or episode 6, when she pulls up. First of all, her band's not even black. Okay, it's a very beige, tan, brownish, and you don't see those often, but it's fire. And you think about it, and I'm like, damn, she do look good getting out this damn Benz.
Yes, yes. You fully it is in episode 6 that happens, but you fully understand why she said what she said. Unfortunately, unlike other markets, New York real estate is about image. Like more than any other market, it's about image. You can't pull up in a Tesla,
No.
or definitely can't pull up in a Honda or Hyundai or anything that begins with a H. Okay, like they, they are very particular about it because you have to display wealth to make them think that you understand the markets that they're
Yeah.
going for. So I fully understood her there. It's just funny the way Seema is in this episode, and episode 6, just about her finally coming to the realization that life is going to change after she rejected that offer to stay with the firm. And now, how does that look moving forward for Seema? But next up, we get Carrie as she goes to Duncan's house to bring him a welcome gift. Now, I don't do welcome baskets. I know people who do welcome baskets. If you come to my neighborhood, so be it. I may hear from you. I may don't hear from you. That ain't my problem, not my issue. But she brings here Duncan a welcome basket, and he gives her a gift also from Amazon Prime
Hello from Amazon.
of,
He overnighted those slippers.
of
Those were
the
Duncan
oldest,
slippers.
the oldest slippers humanly possible to give a person as
Oh
just a
God.
way to get rid of those heels. Again, here I just want to focus on just their whole dynamic in this episode because I think that's the most important part here. So once we get past this, and then once we see that Carrie gets the rugs and stuff for her apartment, and she does everything humanly possible to attempt to create a situation where noise does not bother Duncan. What did you think about the lengths that Carrie went to attempt to give him exactly what he needed?
I mean, yeah. First of all, I mean, get something you love. You know what I mean? Not the ugly rushed rugs that you got. Second
Yeah,
of all, you got beautiful hardwood floors, but man, you need carpets in some part of those houses. Like,
yes.
make it
Mhm.
make sense. Um, I think that it was actually nice that she went above and beyond, but I also, I'm kind of feeling like, is she, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like she's doing it with good intent, but it's also like,
Non-confrontational. And she
yeah,
just doesn't want to have the uncomfortable
she
conversation.
doesn't want to have
And that's
uncomfortable
also why she's doing it.
conversations. Yeah, but also it's
Yeah.
kind of like she's been in this space of appeasing, right?
Yes.
Because it's
Hmm.
not like she's not appeasing to Aiden, at the same time. So
Hmm.
yeah, interesting for sure in terms of like how that works. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't know.
It's
I don't have the words for it. I don't.
exactly.
I don't have the words
And
for it.
speaking of appeasing, we have the Miranda of it all. As first we see that she's in an Airbnb with someone who, for some odd reason, plays rock music all times of night. And she's been clearly sliding letters under the man's door because then she slides another letter under his door, and he comes to the door in his tidy whities and a meat cleaver to threaten her life if he get one more letter. This
First
leads
of
her to move
all,
in. Oh,
that
go
man
ahead.
was that man was naked.
Psychopath.
That man was
Psychopath.
was out of control. Listen, if you play any sort of heavy metal, I'm not knocking on your door. I don't know what's over there. He's like, it's like a possible Huck from Scandal. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
sure what kind
Yeah.
of person you are,
Hmm.
so I'm just go ahead and mind my business. You know what I mean? But the
Yeah.
scaring her
Noise canceling
into
headphones or something.
listen,
Mm-mm.
yes, that's what she should have did.
Or find a new Airbnb, because part of the issue was the person who she's renting the Airbnb from couldn't say anything because he wasn't supposed to be rented as an Airbnb. Ma'am, if you don't find another
Not
Airbnb,
you at an illegal Airbnb,
Airbnb
ma'am. You are almost 50. Cut it out. Cut it out.
Exactly. But the situation leads to one of the most uncomfortable things a person could be in, unfortunately. And that is when you have one of your best friends move in with you and you don't set boundaries about how that looks when they move in with you.
Cause hello,
So from the get-go, we see the conflict between Miranda and Carrie with this move in, down to her eating Carrie's yogurt, down to her eating Carrie's
ma'am,
banana,
ma'am.
walking butt ass naked in the
Whose
house.
whose Joker did you think it was? I'm very confused. You're in my house. You're
And
in
she
my
said,
house, and you think I just have a banana in here just for the sake of it? Like they're like what?
"Oh my goodness,
You ate every last thing I had in the house. You ate my yogurt, the last of it. Then you ate my banana, the last. We have problems. Okay, listen. You
hmm
should absolutely set boundaries, but also like at 50, you should know better. What is the do you not ask? Send me a text. Hey, do you let me tell you, I came in the house one day. I was so excited. I had gotten some falafel, okay, and I'm about to snitch. Got some falafel, French fries. Oh, I was ready to go. I put it down, relaxed a little, took a shower, went out, came back. I said, where is my falafel? My cousin said, well, you left it next to the air fryer so nice and neatly. I thought you left it for me. Sir, I
yeah."
could have burnt the whole house down because I'm hungry. You know, when you hungry, you ready to eat. You got your mind, you're set on it, your taste buds tingling. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna murder nobody tonight. But seriously though, at 20 something is different. At 50, Miranda knew better. Man, put my
Yeah.
yogurt back in the fridge, please.
It was just so many instances where it just felt like it was inconsiderateness. One is inconsiderate. I don't care where you end up at. If you get back to my house, I would expect you would do me the courtesy of not walking around butt ass naked in my house without like robes exist. Like they do
What?
exist,
For a reason in my house. Child, please get out of here. Get out of here.
especially when you're not expecting nude people in your house. I think that's the shock that I would not have been prepared for. But this again, it leads just to uncomfortable situations between Miranda and Carrie, and it harkens back to the conversation they had before this decision was made, of both of them trying to come up with excuses of why she shouldn't come live there with Carrie. So at least both of them had that understanding that this was something that possibly wouldn't work. And then you kind of wonder, why did they make the decision to try it anyway, even though we understood the situation Miranda was in, and then it ends up exactly where they thought it would end up at. Just would you just think about just the way they showed this dynamic in this episode here, again going from them being very bluntly clear, like, nah, let me come up with an excuse why we shouldn't live together, why this would not work even though you have all those extra rooms, to it coming to fruition why it wouldn't work. And then both of them in a very adult way, which I absolutely love, of both of them after the incident at the table with the Mexican Coke, saying, pretty sure you're thinking like I'm thinking here about what the next steps need to be.
Yeah, I actually like the fact that, because it shows that you can have conversations without having conversation. It wasn't confrontational, it wasn't passive
Right.
aggressive. It was like
hmm
an understanding that came and it was like, okay, listen, I know that you need a place to stay. I also know that this ain't the place for you to stay. You
There you
know
go.
this ain't the place for you to stay. So like how can I figure this out? And so I was really happy that they were able because we know living with people, living with your friends,
Yeah.
that friendship is it got to be strong enough for it not to break because sometimes you really can actually want to be like, nah, I can't do this, and you got to go, and it puts a stain on it. So I'm happy that they both saw it early on, and they were like, okay,
Yeah.
listen, like, yeah, I need my space, you need your space. This is not going to work. What is the solution? And they came up with it without having an argument or
There you go.
slinging
hmm
any mud. Because sometimes those type of things, those type of situations can get nasty. So I
Yeah.
was happy about that.
Yeah. That was the best part of it all, is that they can handle that like adults. to know that, it is hard to have another adult move into your house that's not like underage. Like I've had nieces and nephews stay with me, a little different. You in your early 20s, like we can work this out. I wouldn't know what to do if another 40-year-old wanted to move in my house with
No,
me
sir.
that
No,
we
sir.
weren't together. And matter of fact, even if we were together, I still would be uncomfortable for a while. I'll be like, look, it's gonna be an adjustment period here, okay?
We
I'm
need
not
to be
used to other
living on
people being here.
separate floors with separate kitchens and separate
There you go.
bathrooms, 'cause
Yeah.
it's not gonna work.
Mhm.
No, no, no.
I need the Fresh Prince house where I don't even notice you here. You in the guest house and I'm in this house. It would be perfect.
You live out there? Oh, all right, cool.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't even notice you here. But
Listen,
let's
that's gonna
let's
do it.
stay on the Miranda of it all, as also we get to see the evolution of her relationship with Joy here, as she decides one night to stay the night over Joy's house. But then Joy has an issue with two of the cutest little dogs that I've never seen before in my life,
Mm-mm.
as they are the most needy dogs
The
in
most
the
needy
world.
greyhounds I done ever
Let
seen
me,
in my
let me
life.
ask you this situation, even though you's married now, but
I'm
I'm gonna
married.
need you to go in your wayback machine for me for a second here. Have you ever had a situation of your first time of the spending the night with someone and them having a pet and that pet just did not leave you alone?
I don't think so. I'm like an animal person though, because I don't
Mm,
mind animals. So it's to me it's different, like I'm not a dog person, but like I've just had cats more and I prefer cats because they are very much like in my head cats look at humans and their owners, they're like, what do you want? Why are you here? Put food in my bowl and walk away. A dog is like, hi, I'm here. You need me. I need you. Feed me, rub me, touch me, pet. And it's like, bruh, I'm gonna lock you in the basement
there
because
you
I
go. Uh-huh.
I can't do all that. That's a lot. You know what I mean? But
Exactly.
I've never experienced that, not to that level, because the dogs were crying. She put them outside the door. I said, no, that's ridiculous.
Exactly. And in the midst of all of this, as we close out, also the whole Carrie storyline with Duncan, we also get Carrie having a text conversation with Samantha. This is something again, the character that's not on the show.
I thought
The
that was
only way they
interesting.
talk is through text messages. And here, just her asking her about Duncan and basically letting her know that a lot of people like Duncan. And I think that's just to set up exactly what we're going to eventually get down the line, possibly between Duncan and Carrie. As later on in the episode, when he's for some odd reason has headphones on and something on the stove and almost burns his place to the ground. And Carrie comes in to save the day as they go out to eat and they finally get to have a conversation about work, a conversation from a writer's perspective about one another. And it felt like coming on common ground on how to do everything. So before we get to my favorite part of the episode, I'm just gonna ask you, what did you think about the way they played this whole situation out between her and Duncan in this episode? And then just the conclusion they came to as being just two writers sitting down having a nice dinner and conversation about everything.
I'm not gonna lie. For a second, I wasn't a fan of this Duncan character because he just seemed like he
Mhm.
came out of nowhere. It didn't feel blended in, right? It
Yeah.
felt very detached. And I was trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, like where are we going with this? And as we see at dinner, it's both of them being writers and
Writers.
and,
Yeah.
and completely two different genres, which I think is a
Yep.
beautiful thing because you get to like have a conversation about like what it's like for you to do writing, what it's like
Hmm.
for her to do writing. So I like the closeout because I think, especially he's not going anywhere, right? And
Yeah.
she's obviously not going anywhere.
Yep.
So I
Mhm.
think coming to common ground was going to be better anyway, versus this being some sort of like fight or some sort of negative
Yeah.
space. But I definitely thought it was very interesting in terms of how they introduced him. But I get it, and I
Yeah.
think that we will probably see a little bit more of the writing carry in the episodes to come, which will
Yeah.
take us back to the original in terms of like how Sex and the City started, how the breakup ends up,
Mhm.
that continuation, like how that plays a part. So I'm actually interested to see how that lines up.
And finally, we get to my favorite part of this episode. Something that we, and I mean we, not me in the audience, not me and us in the audience, me, Amaya, other people. because we have to find out what this glamping is. Because now I want to go glamping. Because clearly this is rich people camping to the
Hello,
T.
okay, because we ain't full. We ain't full. The whole inflatable mattress on the floor. No, 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 no. They got steps. They go into a tent with the. Yes, I need to do
Yeah,
that. I need to do
we're
that.
gonna look this up immediately as both of the families decide to go glamping. As it starts off first with Hubert telling Lisa, "You told me nothing about this. I don't, I don't know what this is." To their daughter saying, "No, Mom said we're gonna get ready for s'mores and everything." So we understand then that they go glamping, and what makes this interesting is just the dynamic of this. We have one side with Charlotte's family, and Charlotte's holding this huge secret with Harry, and we're seeing at glamping, she's about to bust. As Lily first says, "I don't want to go," and Charlotte goes off, not telling her why, but basically saying, "You're going because your father wants to go, and you need to spend time with him this weekend." What did you just think about the entire glamping trip and just how the dynamic between the families worked out here?
I think it's interesting because on one hand, which I knew was coming, I knew Herbert was going to be jealous of this new editor. I knew that was
Hmm.
coming. I was just waiting for it to drop. Um, but then you have Charlotte battling with her teenagers, rightfully so, wanting to be in their phones, disconnected.
Yeah. Hmm.
Old girl wanting to go meet her boyfriend, and but Charlotte is understanding like the time is precious, and they don't know that. They don't know the time so
Yeah.
because they don't understand
Hmm.
that dad has cancer. And so I thought it was interesting because they're both going through something simultaneously, but they're not sharing per se in that terms, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought it was a nice play, especially on friendships, because that's a real
Yeah.
thing for us both to be going through something, maybe not
Yeah.
telling each other the whole truth because and sometimes it's really about wanting to make sure that you don't burden your friend with too much either, right? And I
There
think
you
that
go.
sometimes we have
Hmm.
to think about it from that perspective. It's not just like I'm holding on to this secret because I was asked not to, but or asked to do so, but because I also don't want to burden my friend with whatever they have going
There
on.
you go.
And
Hmm.
so I thought that I love that dynamic because that's the realest thing in friendship, especially as we get older. There's just so many different
Yeah.
things that are happening. So I thought that was like one of my favorite scenes for sure.
Exactly. Just them being able to just sit around. Them at the two at the pool when you see Charlotte walk off because of what's going on with her. And again, you pinpointed it perfectly about her just being frustrated of why is everybody in their devices? Like no one's outside. Like we didn't come here just to be on our devices. And again, trying to wrangle a family together while still being kind of emotionally unstable because of the news that she received and not wanting to jump down everyone's throat about it, down to Harry when he sensed it was coming on, having to say, "Hey, calm down, calm down." Like he understood she was about to blow a gasket and her needing to walk off, versus Lisa, who just takes an innocent picture of her family, and Herbert, just like every man humanly possibly, myself included, decides to go ahead and flip through a couple of other pictures. And this is when he gets immediately jealous, even though he's the one who told her to hire the man.
That part,
But the moment he saw the man she hired,
it was something
immediately
else.
that jealousy kicked in, and he started asking questions that he never asked before as it pertained to any of her projects.
Mhm.
And that drove Lisa crazy. So then we get her and Charlotte as they decide to go, look, we're just going to go to a spa day and have a day in the pool. And then that's when I think the real emotional break happens of the episode. First, you get Lisa telling Charlotte, I have a work crush, and she brings
Mhm.
up that it is her editor that she has a work crush on, and asking Charlotte, what does she think about that? But then, still being a friend and noticing something's off with you. Are you okay? And Charlotte basically like let her know I can't talk about it, and just turns her back. But instead of it causing a rift, we see she just needs to be by her friend, down to even touching her back to let her know I'm still here, even
Yeah.
though you can't tell me what's going on. Just what
Yeah.
did you think about that whole scene?
It reminded me, and I guess it's also because I've recently gotten married, right? But it reminds me of the people who constantly show up for me, right? Like in the moments where they're going through something, right? And just like between, obviously between, not between you and I, but for the people who don't know, like Lucas ended up being the flower guy. And for me in my head, right? Because my mom was like, well, I'll do it. And I was like, no, it's fine, it's fine. And instantly I was like, go get Lucas. Like, and for me, what that means is like there's certain people that you know for sure that you can count on. Like if it obviously in this situation it wasn't because obviously because my husband can't do it, right? But this goes to talking about friends that will hold you down, the people that flew in to be at our wedding. I had a homegirl who is currently in Istanbul, and we have a whole lot happening in the world right now.
Yeah.
She called me the morning of and she's like, I can't make it. And I literally said to her, that's cool. Just make sure you're safe. That's what I said. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on the cart coming down for the wedding and and I don't have glasses on. She gets closer to me. I don't know who she is. She starts saying, don't cry, don't cry. This woman has flown from Istanbul to be with me for my day and literally caught the flight out, stayed for the ceremony only. You see what I'm saying? So friendships, especially as you get older, are so important. So being able to not say anything or to say just a little bit and somebody still choosing to comfort you, like that's how friendship is supposed to be. And I think that was like a perfect example, especially as we get older, of what it should look like.
Exactly. It played out perfectly between them two. And that is episode 5. And next up is episode 6 of our supersized review. And it starts off with Duncan and Carrie having dinner together and something called mullet or muffet. I don't know what this is, but people in the UK, y'all food are.
I think it's mutton soup.
Mutton soup.
Maybe it's
I don't know.
I
Y'all
don't
don't
know.
have good food. I've been there. Y'all don't have good food. But here is just them having a conversation, and Duncan lets her know it is kind of for work. I'm writing my first chapter, and because it's on Margaret Thatcher and it's on a woman, I need a woman's perspective. And I would love for you to do something I never do with other people, which is read my first chapter. And then Carrie coming back to him and saying, no, not a problem, but I need you to also do me the exact same thing. What do you think of both of them agreeing to this, as Duncan is very adamant that he never does this, in a way of building their relationship with one another?
I think
Because writing
that
can be a very intimate experience, and to share that early with someone is crazy.
I think that, especially as somebody who's written poetry, who's written a book, who's shared my art before, yeah, that's a huge deal, right? Because you're letting somebody into like your inner works, your personal, your thoughts, your dreams, your everything, and you are allowing them to provide feedback. And sometimes if you don't take off the hat in terms of being too attached, you'll only consider it as criticism. So it has to be very careful. So him saying like this is the first time, but I feel compelled to do this, and her sharing as well, I think that's a great thing. I think again, like we said, it's building the writer's relationship. It's building that space for us to understand what this is in terms of how it looks for and just like that versus how it looked in Sex in the City.
It's in the city. Exactly. Again, older perspective from older writers and how that looks, as Carrie was normally writing on her life as a 20 to 30 something year old in New York. And now you get a different perspective of that. And that's why she's writing fiction. So we get to see just how that's going to play out. Next up, we get her talking to Aiden on the phone afterwards, and her bringing up Duncan's name a little too much for him to finally say, who is Duncan? As he has the slightest idea, and her telling him, you don't pay attention to anything I say. Basically, I told you exactly who Duncan is. And this is where he lets her know that I'll be coming down to spend a week with you, as Wyatt is going away to some form of a trip. Still don't know the trip that Wyatt's going on, but all we know is Wyatt's going away, and that he's coming to visit Carrie. Now, we're not going to talk about it here because I think it's more important to talk about it in a lump sum of everything between Aiden and Carrie. But what we are going to focus on here is, again, the Miranda of it all. As first, we get Miranda staying with Joy for 3 days. And she's trying to find a new place. And this is time where Seema sends her a place for her to look at. She gets excited, shows Joy. But also, we get to see the dynamic of, as Miranda put, I don't want to become like every other lesbian that moves in after 48 hours, which is true. I hear that a lot that happens with lesbians.
I definitely heard that.
What did you think about just Miranda being comfortable enough to stay with Joy for that long period of time in a new relationship?
Listen, Linda, listen, 72 hours is a long time when you just met somebody. I think that, I feel like they have rapport, right? So
Yeah,
they're both comfortable with each other, so it's not surprising. But I do think that what I do love, because I'll be getting on Miranda a lot. What I do love is she's self-aware. I
yeah.
cannot be here that long. I need to find a
Mhm.
place because you need your space and I need mine. And this is new. So I think that also you want to make sure that there's some sort of build up to getting into the space of being able to spend
Exactly.
the night at each other's house. So yeah, I think that I'm glad that she's self-aware of it all.
Yeah, exactly. That was the most important part of it. And again, as we'll continue with her and Seema, as first we get Seema giving the best goodbye humanly possible to her car and her driver, down to telling her driver, when I get back on my feet, I'm coming back for you. But here she proceeds to show Miranda an amazing apartment. And Miranda's biggest issue is, as Seema puts it, they're going to ask for 150 minimum over asking.
So
So just
so
understand and
we,
start there.
we talking about $150 a month, or we talking about one hundred and
We
fifty
talking about
thousand
150,000 over
dollars?
asking. I'm assuming. What they talk about a
What?
month? I
What?
assumed they would talk about 150,000 over
No,
asking.
I mean that's what I'm saying. $150,000 for an apartment. See, this is why, and this is why I don't live in New York, because I refuse to be house broke. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. Like you literally have to work at Google, Meta. You need to be making 300K to live in New York.
Yeah,
To
comfortably.
live. So not,
Yeah,
I'm not talking about just pay your rent. I mean to live, to like enjoy yourself.
yeah,
And I mean, the place was nice, but it wasn't that damn nice. Not for no 150K thousand. Oh, over asking? No, ma'am. No,
mhm.
no, no.
But keep in mind, as Miranda says, like, well, I don't believe in that. The real estate market is already crazy enough. She didn't say any of that because she didn't have it. She'd have said that because that was her principle. Because we got to remember, she did sell the brownstone. She has the money, so the
This is
money
true.
ain't
I
the issue.
forgot. Yeah.
The money's not the issue for her. It's solely based off of principle. So then Seema follows up, finds her a condo that does everything but accept dogs. What I'm going to ask here is the most important question. Do you think you should make lifestyle living decisions based off of someone you just started dating?
Absolutely not. Of course not. Of course not. But I mean, I'm gonna give you some leeway because you want some flexibility, so I get it. But still, you don't even have a dog. You didn't seem to like those dogs. Now you want to make sure the dog's got a place to stay. I am confused. I'm
Yeah.
confused.
As Seema told her, you need to find some other real estate fairy that can find these type of
That
places
part.
for you because they don't exist anywhere else. I mean, by the end, we do get the final conclusion from Miranda of saying, I'm just going to pay the 150 over asking because the place makes me happy. So again, what we've always seen Miranda be more neurotic, but it feels like right after Joy met uh Brand, I always say this boy's name right. Brody or Brady?
Brady, her
Can't
son?
remember. Yeah.
Yeah,
After
Brady.
she meets Brady and him and Joy kick it off, it feels like that kind of put in perspective for Miranda, how she should view everything else. So what did you just like about for a change out of 3 seasons of And Just Like That of Miranda kind of being concrete and sticking to I need to make a decision that's going to make me happy more than any other uncomfortableness I may have. Yeah.
I was getting on you, Miranda. I was going to let you have it in this episode if you
Mhm.
didn't get it together. Okay. And so, no, I love that she's actually standing firm. She's
Yes.
figuring out what she wants in a respectful, responsible way. She's learning about herself. She's being, like I said, the whole self-awareness, like that's
Yeah.
very key. And I like that she introduced Brady to Joy, but I think it was like you said, it was that break, that piece of like, one, I can do this. And two, I think it's also like, this isn't the end of the world. I feel like she's
Yeah.
getting to that space where she's like, I have to move on. What does moving
Yeah.
on look like for me? But also, okay, now that I'm moving on, what else is possible? And her
Yeah.
thinking about her happiness first and foremost is really huge because we know there are a lot of women, there are a lot of men who don't think about
Yeah.
their happiness. Their happiness is based on somebody else, and I think that that's very important to make sure that people know like your happiness is based on you.
Yeah. And for her to make that decision, it was based off her principles and her allowing principles to get in the way of her happiness, which in some instances that's fine, but not when it comes to real estate. Like, unfortunately, it is what it is when it gets into that type of market of exactly what you want to do. Next up in this episode, we'll focus on Charlotte and Harry of it all here. First, we get Charlotte as she's going to the cancer center, and Mitzi comes in and tries to say, "Hey, who do you know with cancer?" Charlotte trying to cover it up. She said, "You're going to the cancer center, so you have to know someone." And Charlotte, again, the lie. I'm going here to volunteer, and they don't need any other volunteers because they don't have enough spaces for volunteers for cancer patients. But here is where Harry gets the news
Because there was
of his
only one
treatment.
volunteer slot open, just
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Just one cancer volunteer slot. Like we can't have too many volunteers for cancer patients. But here we get Harry getting the news of his treatment plan and his treatment options here and deciding exactly what he should do. Just what you think about this conversation between Charlotte and Harry as they're leaving, as he's trying to decide between treatment, surgery, what to do, and Charlotte and saying, in the end, this is really up to you.
That would have been me. That 110%. It's your choice. I support whatever you decide to do. I love Charlotte as a wife. Like the way she
Yeah.
shows up for her
Mhm.
family, the way she shows up for her husband. It's very much like she has that balance of being able to lead, but she also knows how to be and not a chef, whatever you want. She could be a shoe chef, not the head chef,
Yeah,
right?
that's two chef. Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
so I love that she has that. And so I think that it's the best thing for him, for her, because it shows like, hey, I'm here to support you and whatever you need to do. He doesn't feel any added pressure to do one or the other. And I mean, hey, listen, if I were in that situation, that's what I would want.
Yeah. That just to have a partner there that you can lean on, that no matter what you decide, they're gonna respond with no judgment. And I think that's the beautiful part of it, is that Charlotte didn't feel like she needed to take over the situation from Harry. She's still like, hey, this is up to you, whatever you want to do, however you want to go about it. And just, hey, the doctor said no matter what, this is 98% effective because when they caught it, how early it is, stuff. It's just reassuring him that what she needs. And as we see later on in the episode, even though she's reassuring him, we still see she is terrified of exactly what can happen with him. Next up, I want to focus on Lisa because Lisa leads into other issues for Charlotte. As we get first Lisa and Marion as they are in the booth editing her project, and she keeps on getting calls from Herbert's assistant about things, and she says, "You know what? I'm going to do the cardinal sin of all mothers, and I'm going to put my phone on silent." And as they're working on projects, this is where she finds out one that Marion is married, and him being very adamant as he brings it up. She said, "I didn't know." He said, "I like to keep my work life and my personal life completely separate. But here we get
Mhm.
Herbert walking in the room. We see he's a tad bit worried or irritated as he says, "You know what? Your phone's been off. I've been trying to reach you." And this is where he tells Lisa her father had a stroke and her father has passed away. Just what did you think about in a whole here with Lisa, the guilt that she feels over doing something that, in all honesty, it was just small so I could get work done.
I think that that is, it's so crazy because we put our phones on do not disturb. I know I
Yeah.
do when we're recording because you don't want to
Hmm.
call, especially because we're using our phones, right?
Yeah.
And it would absolutely 1,000% suck to get a call like
Yeah.
that. Um, I think that it's not just that. I think it's just the overall her work ethic and how hard she's been working on this
Hmm.
particular project, being
Yeah.
passionate about that and wanting to see it, like wanting to get to the end. I think that because she's been working so hard, that was the part that, because then it starts to think about like, well, when was the last time you went to see him? When did you spend time with him? When did you call? Those things start to pop up in your head. And it's an unfortunate, very sad reality that a lot of people face. People are so inundated with their work, be it because of financial reasons or because of passion, that you miss that one call, and that one call can really change your life. And so I felt for her. I
Yeah.
did feel for her.
It was a hard thing as we see her go and grapple with it for the rest of the episode. And I know we're going to get into a bunch of stuff, but what I do want to talk about here happens all the way at the end. And it's because it's some of the most profound words I've heard on television. And it comes from Herbert's mother,
Mother.
who is
Mhm.
the biggest blank in the world to everybody humanly possible. But when she sees Lisa on the stage as she's trying to eulogize her father, and she sees Lisa break, she takes that time after the service to tell her, and I wrote that down this because that means a lot, and I'll explain why it means a lot to me when she said, um, if you're not there with your loved ones at their last moments, it's because they didn't want you there. And it's because they wanted you to remember them as they were. And it was something that it was so short but so profound because
Yeah.
it felt like it helped release a lot of what Lisa felt off of her, especially coming from someone who's not always had the best things to say to her. But in this moment, she fully understands this is what you need so you could move on.
Yeah,
Just what did you
absolutely.
just think about that? The message that she delivered there.
That was like, first of all, I've never heard that before. And so to hear it, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Because that's like I recently lost my grandmother last year, and you instantly think like, dang, I should have spent more time. I should have called more. I should have this. I should have that. Like, what could I have done differently? Um, but like knowing, like just listening to her say that, it's put a lot of different things in perspective, because
Yeah.
we're not always going to be able to be there. We're not always going to be able to get that moment. You know what I mean? But like, what do you remember? What can you hold on to? And how can you honor that legacy in moving forward and
Yeah.
releasing yourself? Because of that, listen, she would have held on to that guilt. She would have held on to it for as long as humanly possible, because she would have felt, especially with the what's her name? But first of all, this woman is everywhere.
Lucille.
Is that
Jenifer
her
Lewis.
name? Yes,
Yeah,
I
Jenifer Lewis,
love her.
but Lucille in this, yes.
I love
Lucille
her.
in her Michael's Kors bag that she let every
She's the perfect person to play that part too. Lord have mercy. Yeah, I love that, especially with the discourse, right?
yeah.
Within their relationship, that the mother-in-law was able to, like you said, give her the things she needed to release herself from being held hostage of the guilt for the long
Yeah.
term.
I mean, it's a hard thing to go through when you realize at those moments when you lose a loved one that you're not there. Like I went through that when my mom passed away, and I was in another country, and I couldn't make it back in time for anything, and it was a guilt that to this day still hurts a lot. And at times I still like, well, I should have did this, I should have done that. But it's also good to remember, or at least have people remind you, like you were there anyway. Like don't let that last moment like be the thing that you use to weigh you down.
Yeah.
Herbert stood on that stage and said, "Hey, she wasn't there when he passed away. Every production, every play, no matter what, she was always here for him."
Yeah. And I
Like it's
love
just that
that.
reminder, like you don't have, even if you weren't there for those last moments, that's fine because you were always there anyway. And then to compound that with the mother-in-law saying, like, maybe you wasn't meant to be here then. And I think that that's something that it can help give people solace that go through these situations, to really think about it that way. Like maybe the higher being decided to, you don't need to experience that, and maybe that moment is for other people to experience and not you. Like maybe you were there enough where you didn't have to experience that. And it's hard for people to lose parents. I lost both of my parents last year, and it was literally the same thing. I was working during when both of them passed away, and it hurt so much. But just to hear stuff like this and hear other
Yeah.
members bring up, hey, you were here for this, you were here for that. Like it was never a situation where they didn't know, like, oh no, my son will do anything for me. And I think that was the most important element here,
Yep.
down to even her conversations with Lucille, which we'll get into about everything with her dad, because it kind of puts in perspective the way her dad felt about her. Because we saw him last season, and we knew then it was never a doubt about that she loved her father and he loved her. But he was going out of his way to make sure that his daughter wasn't bothered by things that he thought were small. And I think that's something a lot of parents go through when they get older. Of like, I don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to interrupt you. And then as an adult of a as an adult of a parent child, because that's what happens. As your parents get older, they become your children. Of a parent child, you have to interject in them, be like, it's not bothering me. What's going on here?
Right.
You got to
I need to
reassure them of
know
this.
because I need to know how
But
much I'm getting in that will. It's like, no, I'm joking.
it's but right, and I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but I had to go there first because that weighed on me a lot, of just the way that is presented with the mother-in-law. But just going back through the whole process of everything with Lisa, after getting the information that her father passed away, as she's talking to Charlotte about it, telling Charlotte the news, she gets an email blast from Lucille inviting her to her father's service. What did you think about the whole situation between her and Lucille
Child,
here?
I thought she was gonna flip some, okay? Because, ma'am, let me take my earrings off because I don't know who you finna, what kind of game you playing. Um, I'm glad that we're able to come to understanding though, because everybody grieves differently,
Yeah,
right? And she had a certain relationship with the father that Lisa didn't have with the father,
yeah,
and but she knew his passion. They both knew that the theater was his
yeah.
passion, and I think that
Hmm.
absolutely, Miss Lucille should have asked, right? Do not overstep. That's one thing.
Yeah,
You should have asked, you should have had a conversation with Lisa. But I think that, them being able to like meet in that common ground,
yeah,
even though it was theatrical and she did do the most because drama is her middle name, she couldn't help herself. I think
yep.
I was happy that they were able to have a moment where they came together and they were like, okay, yeah. So it was a little bit much, but he would have loved it. And that's all that really mattered.
That I think that was the most important part. Did you put any credence to Lucille as they're sitting at the diner and Lisa's asking the questions and Lucille bringing up? I sat with him for 20 years, and it was always, don't bother Lisa. Don't bother. You handle it. Don't bother her. And her saying, in the end, I thought that's what you wanted. Of her thinking in her head, it wasn't necessarily her father saying that, but that's just what Lisa told him she wanted, and that bringing a misunderstanding of how to handle that situation.
I think that that's not something that's far-fetched. I feel like a lot of
Hmm.
times that happens because, like you said, they feel like they're bothering us. And to me, some things are a bother, some things are need to know ASAP right now,
Yeah,
right here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, be able to make the distinction to know, like, when some, or it's, it's as we get older, it's harder. And like you said, they become your children, even though they're your parents.
yeah.
So for me, it's constantly finding that balance to be like, you about this close to whatever
Close.
that last nerve is that I got. I'm telling you about this close. And so, and as I've gotten older, I've learned to also be authentic and honest with my
Hmm.
parents, respectfully, right? Like,
There
listen,
you go. Hmm.
this is mine. This is what I'm doing. XYZ. What do you need? How can I help? Now, if you're asking me for
Hmm.
help, it can't be like, oh, it got to be a certain kind of way. Like, listen, you took the escalator, I took the elevator, you took the stairs. It, we all
We
got
got
to
it.
the destination.
Yep. Hmm.
That's it.
Yeah. Again, it's a hard transition to make. It's a funny transition to make
It's a hard
because
transition.
when you got to start telling your parents like, "This is my house. I'm gonna need you. Why is all my lights on?
And listen,
Why is the TV on
why you
90
letting
if
all my
you
good
can't
air
hear?"
out? Go to your room because this room in my house, and in my house, you follow the rules.
You know, my exactly. So let's just close out. What did you think about just Lisa in this episode and just how they showed her grieving process? Not only that, how her family was there for her when and friends when she needed them the most.
Again, the hardest thing about getting older is you're going to lose people. And then unfortunately, we're going to lose our parents at some point. And I think
Yeah.
that knowing that you have solid friends and family to support you through that is like, and so I feel like they did this on purpose because she was so work oriented, she was so boss like, and not in a bad way, but they needed to show her softness, they needed to show her, um that, like, it's hard to describe it, but they just needed to show the opposite side
Hmm.
of what they've always been showing us, essentially,
Yes.
right? It's unfortunate that this was the thing, um, but I do think that in the end, it's going to shift the new Lisa that we're going to see. I think
Yeah.
for the better, and it will be hard. So we will see more of her grieving process, but I think that we'll also see her growth as well as a
Yeah.
mom, as a wife, as a boss. So I'm interested to see what that looks like.
And with closing out Lisa, we can partially close out most of what happens with Charlotte because a lot of it bounced off of what was happening with Lisa and getting that information down to her pointing out to Harry, Lisa's father's doctor told him she was perfectly healthy beforehand. And we see all of this is bringing up the fear that Charlotte has in losing Harry and how she has to deal with that down to when we get to the end of the episode and she's in a completely different part of town getting adult dependent diapers, runs into Carrie and fully breaks down, tell Carrie what's going on, and then Carrie telling her, "I'm your vault. You can tell me anything and it won't go anywhere." This, what did you think about the closeout between Charlotte Harry here and how Charlotte is dealing with this news now with Harry?
I feel like now that she's had to, like, open the vault and tell Carrie what's happening, she'll be better for it. But I
Yeah,
think that her fear is realistic. Like, I mean,
yeah.
whenever it comes to terminal illness, we talk
Mhm.
about things all the time. I've shared before, my fibroids, right? That's not life threatening, but it's something that a lot of women deal with. And so for some women,
Yeah,
it is life threatening. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So being able to feel like you can share certain things without being a burden, without, like, having to, like, hold it all inside is completely freeing, because holding it to your chest is a very hard thing to do. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And I think that, again, for Charlotte, this is the love of her life. Like, she has the
Mhm.
way that she adores Harry, the way that she just loves him and wants to be around him, like that's her best friend for
Yeah.
real, for real. And so the idea and the thought of losing him,
Mhm.
her fear is absolutely understandable, but I love that now that she has Carrie in it. And so even though she can't share with the other ladies, she does have a safe space to go so that somebody can help her hold herself up while she's also helping hold Harry up, because that's literally what it is. It's like somebody has to hold you up while you now hold this person up to get through what
Mhm.
needs to get through. So,
Yeah. That's why I partially said last episode of why I felt it was selfish for him to give her that instruction is
hmm,
because at this point she's his only support system,
right.
and
But nobody
she was
supporting her.
all of it. She was breaking down, and he was still trying to dismiss a lot of her fears, down to saying, "No, focus on the basketball game. Leave me alone." And I understand why he's doing it that way because to some people it may come across as him being inconsiderate, but in all honesty, it's a coping mechanism. He's distracting himself from everything. I don't want to think about this right now, so I'm gonna pinpoint focus on the game. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do everything humanly possible, so I'm not thinking every minute of the day that I have cancer. But then you're not thinking the other person that does know, that does not have an outlet. All of this is now weighing on her over and over and over again. So it's a great thing. We get to finally see her break, which is highly important because Charlotte never breaks. So you finally get to see her break, and it's to her friend, someone who she knows she can trust. Because just like she was there for Carrie with everything with Big, now Carrie gets to help her do everything with
Yep.
Harry.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. And next up, we're gonna close out the episode because this is gonna be a long one here. This whole subject, because this is like a 2-3 parter here, and that is the Carrie and Aiden of it all. As first we get Aiden as he arrives in New York and he throws with supposed to be little pebbles. I ain't never seen a little pebble cause that much damage. As he breaks the the old window in her house, extremely old from the 1800s, as she says, in her house, as he's trying to be romantic. But as he's cleaning up, we get to the reason why everything is feeling like it's falling apart for Aiden, as he says. When it came time to put Wyatt on the plane to send him to this camp, he didn't want to go. And they made him go anyway, and it felt like they were sending him off to get rid of him. This, what did you think about Aiden feeling that way with Kathy, but then also bringing that back to Carrie, and Carrie having to be there to let him know, like, hey, I'm still here for you through all of this. Don't let this window be something that's going to weigh you down here.
Child, please. Just over it. I think that I would just like for Aiden to be upfront. I would like him to be upfront. It seems like we've just had so many instances with him not being upfront.
Mhm.
And if you know something is going on, like talk about it now, don't talk about it later. And
Yeah,
so, I mean, I get why they felt that way, of course, but the reality of it is like I think they're both Aiden and Kathy are starting to see the need to do things to help Wyatt, and
Wyatt.
by
Yeah,
helping him is not keeping him at the house and telling him he can't have video games. Like that's not helping him. So
yeah,
I understand why they felt that way, because if he doesn't want to go, now you're forcing him. It's a whole thing. I get it. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, like you have to remember you're doing it for his own good.
yeah. That was the most important element of it all. And then we get Aiden as he just obsesses. As Carrie says, you can't get a new glass because the way this glass that reflects off of the rainbows. At that point, it's her being honest with him about how upset she is that he broke the window. But then it's also her later on pulling back and being like, look, it's not that important. But he immediately obsesses over it. When he starts obsessing over it, did you think it was for a reason? Or do you just think he was trying to please her?
No, I definitely thought it was for a reason, because even though it's technically not a big deal, he was so from the jump in terms of breaking the window and being like, why is everything not going my way? And the whole thing about
Mm-hmm.
Wyatt, I just felt like there was something more on the back end of that he just wasn't sharing. And for me, I was just like, again, be honest, be upfront, let it be known versus like letting it dwell and sit a bit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because it looked a bit like avoidance, not coming to bed, right, waking up before she woke up and leaving and whatnot. Like it felt like avoidance for me, and so I
Yeah.
definitely felt like there was something else sitting that needed to be discussed.
Yeah. So later on, we get Aiden as he returns back after leaving her in early morning to go find replacements for the glass. He comes back with multiple doors saying, "Hey, none of it's going to fit, none of it's going to work." And at this time, he tells Carrie, "I slept with Kathy." And he proceeds to tell her why, saying, "Once we came back from the trip, there was a bunch of emotions involved, and I slept with her." And as he's beating himself up, Carrie's response is, "Oh, I understand how that could happen." What did
I
you
don't
think about
understand how that could happen, because explain it to me. Explain it to
what?
me.
What do you think about Carrie when she says, "One, let's play off the point that she said, I understand how that could happen," but then also she proceeds to say, "It's not a big deal. Like, I told you I was willing to wait for you for 5 years." I never remember the time frame being given. For 5 years, I was willing to wait until we could do this, but that didn't mean we were together. What do you think about that revelation given right there to Aiden from Carrie?
I'm is confused. I'm is very confused. It's a confusing situation. Somebody help me untangle. It feels, you know what
Hmm.
it feels like? You know what it feels like? A situationship. An
There you go.
entanglement. It does not
Hmm.
feel like a relationship at all. I'm very, very confused. Like, no, I don't understand how that can happen because you can decide not to have sex with your ex
Yep.
knowing
Hmm.
that we are still trying to be faithful to one another. So what are we talking about here? I am confused. I'm over it. I am done with Carrie and Aiden. I don't want it no more. I don't want it
I
no more.
think I think part of the confusion is that Carrie feels there's no need to be faithful, quote unquote. They're not together. Her thing is, you come here, we can be intimate with one another. I come see you, you come see me, but we're not fully together because we can't be, because you made it very clear where your focus is at.
So
So it
why do
brings
you
it
have
back.
a key? Why do you get to pop up when you want? Like it's weird.
Yeah,
It's a
it's not
feel.
operating like a situationship, but it's definitely a situationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like I'm playing these games with you, but then I do love the point that Curry brings up. It's a problem that we haven't had this conversation before. It's like she had an understanding of what this was.
Right,
He
but
had a
he.
completely different understanding of
Mhm.
what it was, but neither one of them talked to each other about exactly the situation that they're in. And because of it, it leads to these confusions, as even Aiden getting mad after telling her he slept with Kathy and her saying, "Did you think I was going to wait for you for 5 years and not sleep with no one?" And he heard that means you want to
Sure.
sleep with other people.
Boo this man. Rotten tomato. Out of here.
So in the end, they still end up sleeping together. So it's what at the end they still ended up sleeping together. And the key part is at the end we get when Aiden is about to leave to return home. We get a knock and it's Duncan coming up the stairs. As Duncan is coming to give Carrie his chapter so she can read it. But we automatically sense, to me at least, that Aiden even feels that it's something that's gonna happen between Duncan and Carrie. This what did you like about the ending of it of Aiden leaving, Duncan coming, and then once Carrie gets a manuscript, her looking around, even wondering who
How to
put the
get
manuscript here.
Mm-hmm. I thought that it was a nice play. It leaves it's open ended for us to think
Mhm.
what could the possibilities of what could happen. So I'm interested to see how it works because at the end of the day, they're not together.
Yeah,
And they got some
which
things
is
to think
weird.
about for real, because like it's messy and it's confusing. But I'm interested to see how that's gonna play out. Um, and I like that they left it like that. It was
Yeah.
no disrespect. It wasn't no negative energy, but it was like this space of like, what do we do now? Where do we go from
Mhm.
here? So, mm,
And I think it finally for the show it leaves the door open for Carrie to be with other people because up until they have that conversation, you automatically assume they were still in a relationship, like because it was never really said that they weren't in one or that Carrie agreeing to wait didn't mean that they were going to be monogamous. It meant that we can circle back around after you handle this business and then we can see what happens. But then that puts a completely different spin on that conversation. Because what happens if 5 years
okay.
is a long time?
Mm-hmm.
Eric could meet somebody, fall in love, and marry someone within that 5 years.
Hello, for real.
Like it almost signifies that this should be the end of Carrie and Aiden because there's literally no reason to be together. But then I have another question too. Maybe I'm lost, so I'm gonna have you help me out, and the audience, you help us out too. Didn't Aiden kind of also help buy the place that she's living in?
Mm,
Or am I losing my mind?
I can't remember. Honestly,
I swear I
I
remember
don't
him
know that
helping get the
he did.
place
I don't
because
know that
she
he
had
did.
her apartment,
Yeah, she
but
sold
then
it.
he wanted them to have a bigger place for the kids
Yeah, I don't
and
remember if he
everything.
put in on it. So that would be very interesting for sure.
Yeah. But again, and it also brings up that if he did, it makes sense why she had to come give him a key and everything else. And why would he throw a pebble against the glass? I think, Nick, you got a key. I don't even need to let you in.
That room, listen. All right, sir, just now you got to fix the 1800 window. It just don't make no sense. Like, don't make no sense.
Oh, all right. So I'll ask you, and then we close this out. What are your final thoughts on episodes 5 and episode 6 of this? And just like that.
Uh, Happy Miranda is self-aware and growing.
Mhm.
Interested to see how Seema is going to get this business of hers off the ground.
Yeah.
Wondering how Lisa is going to grieve and finish the docu-series or documentary
Mhm.
because it's a very big part of the storyline here for her, and grief shows up differently for a lot of people.
Mm.
I'm wondering if Charlotte will tell Harry that she told Carrie, or if that's gonna
Carrie.
be a secret that they keep under wraps.
Hmm.
Um, and then for Carrie, like, what's next? Because I don't think Aiden is it. Because
No.
I just don't, and I just feel like somebody somewhere is experiencing this. But child, in your late 40s, early 50s, you should not. Let me tell you
Yeah.
that if you are experiencing it, you should not go talk to a friend, get you a therapist, figure it out. Because no, ma'am, that is a football field full of red flags with Aiden, and it don't make no
Yeah.
sense. It don't make
Yeah.
no sense.
Repeatedly. So again, ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think. Let us know what you think of Carrie, Aiden, and Duncan. How is this going to proceed for the rest of this season? This is the end of Carrie and Aiden, and this is the beginning of Carrie and Duncan. Possibly. Let us know what you think about Lisa. As Amaya pointed out, grief presents itself differently for everyone. And how is it when you grieve? Go to work with someone who you have a work crush on. And will that create a very dangerous dynamic moving forward with Lisa? And let us know what you think about Miranda and Joy here. Once Miranda moves into this new place, and as fast as their relationship is progressing, because we know lesbians and relationships progress extremely fast as it's progressing, how is this going to work out for Miranda? Has she found finally the one that can truly make her feel happy? And finally, what do you think about Harry and Charlotte here? And how is this diagnosis going to change the dynamic of their relationship? Because is it going to lead to Charlotte finally being dishonest out of safety, out of a necessity of not telling Harry that she's speaking to Carrie about it? And how would it be if he finds out this information? Now you can check us out Thursday after the episode drops. So we're gonna drop this supersized review right after the episode 6 drops. And again, like, comment, subscribe. We'll be back unless I get married next. We'll be back next. We'll be back next week at the same time. Thank you all for tuning to us again.
Unless I'm a flower
and
girl.
just like that, peace, people.
Peace.